welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul. My co-host Justin Baker and I here to run down the top four teams in the Eastern Conference, the Washington Capitals, the Philadelphia Flyers, the Boston Bruins, and your favorite neighborhood team, the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't know why they're your favorite neighborhood team, but
they used to be one of my favorite teams.
They're like fifth in the league in attendance.
Yeah.
For average attendance. It's pretty solid. Who would have thought a team in Florida could work if you're actually decent?
Who would have thunk
crazy.
it?
It's crazy. Imagine if the Florida Panthers didn't suck. People might actually come to the games.
Might.
They might. I mean,
let's beat the Heat. Let's go to a hockey game. Oh, they're going to suck? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I don't actually want to go. I'll just go to the giant outlet mall that's across the street.
Or I'll go grab a seat with the Florida Marlins, and because they've got 20,000 empty seats every game. So
that's true too. The outlet mall across the street from the Panthers arena is like the biggest one in the U.S.
Really?
It's
never been
massive. I think it's a mile from one end to the other or something like that.
All right.
I've been to it a few times. It's quite wonderful. it's a good place to buy things. Things that you definitely don't need.
That's the best kind of place.
The worst part, though, I like to go and find some other teams' apparel. Like, I'd snag a nice Florida Panthers jersey or something like that if I found it in an outlet mall for like $50 or something.
Heck yeah.
There's like no stores like that there. Even the sports stores don't sell Florida Panthers gear. They have a lot of Lightning gear. But yeah, even the one across the street, they don't really sell much, which is sad. If you're a Florida Panthers fan out there and you're listening right now, we would love to hear from you because I just don't know.
I would love to hear about your experience over the last decade as a Panthers fan.
That's true. It's a sad decade, but I'm a Leafs fan, so I understand pain.
You do.
I mean, the Wings haven't had a lot of luck either, but they've had a lot of success. You had a tremendous childhood. Your childhood, teenage years, early 20s were glorious.
Yeah.
I remember going to the parade in 2008 when they won. The girl I was dating at the time was like, come on, we got to go to the parade. Like the night they won. So we went to downtown Plymouth, which is a small, like a little dinky downtown area. And people got their blowhorns and driving their cars through, honking and all this. I remember it. I was like, this is what hell is like. Watching people celebrate the team that I hate winning the Stanley Cup. It was awful. But it was fun to hate the Red Wings because they were so good. It's like, how enjoyable is it to hate a team when they're at their lowest point? I mean, in some respects, I'm like, but
it's no fun to kick someone when they're down.
There. Yeah, everyone is there eventually, and it's much more fun to hate a team when they're really good. I mean, that's why people hate the Patriots. Like, it's just fun to hate the Patriots, and obviously Tom Brady not there anymore, but fun to hate them when he was there. Anywho, we've got some teams to break down. The top four teams in the Eastern Conference. We're going to start it out with Steve Yzerman's former team, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the team that he basically assembled here and is making what should be a long playoff run.
It better be.
On the old paper. Should be a long playoff run. They were the second place team in the Atlantic Division. They kind of had a little bit slower of a start. They picked it up back half of the season, what was left of the back half of the season, and really I think they found their way. I think they also were like, what's the point in bursting out the gate like we did the year before? And Kucherov had 25 goals before anybody else had 10. They flew out of the gate. They didn't have the gas. Obviously, Columbus destroys them. They don't win a single playoff game. The team that wins the Stanley Cup won less games than the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think that's true, right?
It is true.
Yeah. So all the good that winning in the regular season does. But here's an opportunity to rewrite the story. And with that said, as we've been doing with all these other teams, we've been going goaltender, defense, offense, and breaking down every little bit along with special teams. So we start off on the back end with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, Vasilevsky, right? He's coming off a Vezina-like season. He's up there in terms of everybody's been already putting him in top 3 for Vezina voting already. Maybe I don't agree with that. I would maybe put him at 4 or 5 personally. But again, he's had a fantastic season. There's no denying it. He's in the last year of a $3.5 million deal, and next year his big contract kicks in. So he better kick some butt now, or else that contract's going to look really bad. I mean, look, he already looked down the road, and you can see Bobrovsky. He's not getting a lot of praise at his money,
and neither is Carey Price at the money he's getting.
Right,
they're all pretty close.
Exactly. Yeah, that $9.5 million, especially when you have a team that's so tight up against the cap right now, and they've got a lot of D-men who are going to need new contracts or are UFAs for that matter. It's going to be hard to continue the success they have if they've handing out deals like this at $9.5 million and. Even though goaltending,
your goalie that much, it's just that's a big chunk. Especially the cap is not going to move.
It is. It's weird to me because while goaltending is my favorite position, it shouldn't be the highest paid position. Even though it's like the one position that can steal a game. You can have a forward, and he probably will never steal a series for you. He might steal a game, but a goaltender can steal a series.
Yeah.
So, but yet I don't think they should be paid higher than any other player on the team.
Which I guess. He's not.
No,
Kucherov
luckily.
is paid $9.5 million as well. They obviously thought that he could get more. I mean, everybody takes a pay cut in Tampa Bay because of the Florida state taxes and all that. So this is basically, hey, we're signing you to quote Carey Price money, but without the taxes. So help us, and we'll have a better team in front of you, and you'll look better as we go on. He's also only 25 years old. It's easy to forget how young Vasilevsky actually is. But yeah, I mean, this team's going to have no problem from a goaltending standpoint. And if something did happen to him, Curtis McElhinney is not the worst goaltender to have. He is 37 years old, and this has been a long break. So we'll.
Yeah, he looked good last year in the playoffs for Carolina when he came in for an injured Mrazek. So. Yeah. Like, if something happens to Vasilevsky, I'm not worried.
He's a big guy, plays the angles very well, and also has some like sneaky athleticism where he ends up having some highlight saves as well. So goaltending wise, I mean Tampa Bay probably out of these 4 teams tops in the East, despite the fact that all 4 of them have pretty darn good goaltender. Tampa Bay probably has the edge out of all 4 of these teams, in my opinion. Boston with Tuukka Rask, but I think that Tuukka Rask...
I would probably take Tuukka Rask right now if I had to choose one. Yeah, I honestly would. But again, it's razor thin.
Yeah. I mean, between the two guys... Now, Tuukka Rask, he had a better season overall, but Vasilevsky, something about him tells me that he is going to make up for last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think so.
Tuukka Rask has had plenty of opportunities in the playoffs, and he can't close.
No coffee for him.
Whoops. Okay. All right. We know all about the goaltending. To me, probably the biggest question for the Tampa Bay Lightning, if there is a question, is their defense. I know that's kind of crazy to say. You've got Victor Hedman, who is arguably the best defenseman in the league, and Ryan McDonough, who not too long ago we were talking about him being like a top 15 defenseman in the NHL too.
He still might be.
It still might be. After that, though, it gets a little dicey. I mean, Mikhail Sergachev, usually on his game, very very nice. He's so fast, offensively a good defenseman. And then we got to go Braden Colburn, Shattenkirk, Luke Schenn. I don't even know why Luke Schenn's not playing. I hope. I hope for
not.
Tampa Bay that he's not playing. Eric Cernak. I guess their depth on defense is what you look at and say, oh, it's lacking a little bit. I know Hedman can play basically 30 minutes a game in the playoffs, so it's fine. But do you worry at all with their defense?
I actually don't.
No? Okay.
No, I love what they have, the pieces they were able to add, because I think they're wild cards. And when I mean wild cards, you look at two guys, Zach Bogosian and Kevin Shattenkirk, to me, are the biggest wild cards for this D because they have the ability to be quality defensemen. Obviously, we know Shattenkirk is a little bit more offensive-minded than a guy like Bogosian, who is probably going to be your more, hopefully, defensive defenseman, a guy who can hit, who can still skate, move the puck, okay. But both these guys need new contracts, and that's where it's going to come down to, because these guys are going to play like they want to earn their last big deal, right? A guy like Shattenkirk, obviously he's been floated around a couple times, traded at the deadline from Washington. Bought out. He's a right-handed guy, so obviously there's still a big need for that in the NHL, and a lot of teams will pay a lot of money for that. And, putting up 34 points this season isn't too shabby for a defenseman. So you're going to find some teams that are going to be willing to bid if he shows up in the playoffs. And I think that's something he knows. Obviously, you've got guys like Pietrangelo and Torrey Krug up at the top in terms of, UFA defensemen.
Well, but he's not getting he's getting like a 2-year deal.
Probably
maybe
will be.
A 3. I mean, you could see a really nice playoff for Kevin Shattenkirk would maybe get him that 3, maybe a 4-year. But just given his previous history, signing a big deal and just totally crap in the bed.
Right. No, absolutely not.
I don't know if more than a 2-year deal is on the table anyways. But yeah, he might raise his AAV.
Right, and I think the same for Bogosian too. I think he's in a position where he wants to try to earn, maybe $3-4 million contract, AAV, and maybe get 2 or 3 years. And so if he can go out and show that he can still be, a nice complimentary, number 4, number 5 defenseman for a team still, because again, he's a right-handed defenseman, and there's still a need for that on a lot of teams who like to have those righty-lefties, paired up. So, he's a guy who's shown in the past in Buffalo that he can still play 20, 25 minutes if needed. Now he is getting up there. He's hitting 30 next year. So does he still have it? I don't know.
The speed may be in question a little bit. I mean,
but he could still bring it.
Really his game anyways. But
no.
And then, I mean, of course, you've got Sergachev, who's playing for his first
long-term deal,
his first real long-term deal, at 22 years old, and again,
he's trying to prove that the trade, throwing Drouin out to Montreal for this guy was worth it.
Yeah.
So,
and I'd say, I mean, he is a good defenseman. He shows these flashes of brilliance, but he can make some pretty brutal mistakes, and I think we saw that in the playoffs last year, that he wasn't exactly the guy that you were hoping that he was going to be, but I do think if I have to worry about something with Tampa Bay, to me it's their defense, because beyond Hedmonton, holy crap, Hedman, we're all going to play the Edmonton Oilers. If he goes to the Edmonton Oilers ever, it's going to be the best day ever.
That would be great.
Beyond Hedman and McDonough, there are, to me, a lot of question marks. Yes, Shattenkirk can be really good, but he can also be really bad. Yes, Zach Bogosian can throw a hit, but has the game kind of skated him by? And I mean, maybe it was the fact that he was in Buffalo, so he was already exposed because of the team around him. But I mean, I just don't. Zach Bogosian, to me, is he was a 3rd overall, 4th overall pick. I mean, From that standpoint, the guy's a bust to me. Yeah, he's played a long time, but he ended up basically being a number
644 games,
a number 4, number 5 defenseman outside of a few years of his career. And Sergachev, I mean, can he avoid the mistakes? Can it that to me is the question. I mean, he isn't the largest player out there. I mean, I guess for a defenseman, he's decent size, but he's not always the guy that I'm looking to make the big play, and that worries me for Tampa. If they lose again here in the first round, in this preliminary round, I guess they can't. Sorry, they can't lose in the preliminary round. They lose in the first round. I don't know what this team does. Like, this is an absolute must-win. You have to go to the conference finals at least.
I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
If they don't go to the conference finals,
and especially because there's going to be reseeding, right? So you don't have to face Boston. You probably don't have to face Washington those first couple rounds. So
you might have to play Toronto.
Right. You might have to.
You might have. There's going to be some good teams that end up, and now you can immediately play a team outside your division. I mean, granted, they're likely not going to end up playing like the Pittsburgh Penguins or something, but you might see a pretty decent team.
Yeah, I mean, but there's still an opportunity for you. It's more in your favor to go deeper. And so again, I think for the Lightning, the expectations, their window, they have to at least get to the conference finals. If not, you have to start seriously considering, blowing up this team a little bit, and not necessarily like catastrophically blowing it up, but maybe, move a couple guys like an Alex Killorn, a Tyler Johnson, Yanni Gourde, Andre Palat. Maybe consider moving some of these guys and, bringing in some younger pieces, or
most of their defense is not signed after this year,
right?
I mean, Sergachev is an RFA, but to me, that's where you have to look to start improving, is to take some load off of Hedman and have a better top four. And right now they have a solid McDonough and Hedman, but outside of that, I look at it and I go, I mean, this is like a ragtag bunch of guys. Shattenkirk and Sergachev and Coburn, they could have a great playoff, and we could look back and this is the best defense core in these playoffs. We could also look back and go, it's why Tampa Bay lost in the first round again.
Sure.
Okay, the Boston Bruins. Oh, how far do you think Tampa Bay? Oh no, we'll talk about that at the end.
Okay.
How far we think they're going to go. Also, you're giving your right now cup winner. If you remember, we
I do
talked
remember,
about this.
yes.
So you got to give your top the team you think is going to finish in the East and the West, and then the winner of that.
I do remember.
So just be prepared for that. We'll go the Boston Bruins, the team that finished tops in the Atlantic Division, and the Boston Bruins really early on seemed to have no weakness. They could not be beat for quite some time. Kind of came back down to life a little bit as maybe the last month, 6 weeks of what ended up being the final of the regular season. But the Bruins really, probably for my money, are the best team in the Eastern Conference, not just because of their points. I mean, I think top to bottom, they just have so much. Let's start with the goaltending.
Yeah, again, we talked about it, right?
They already won a trophy.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Razor thin in terms of you talk about Vasilevsky, right? Tuukka Rask, he's another goaltender who could steal a series for you. He had the great regular season. He's going to be up for a Vezina. To me, he's in my top 3 for that category right now. Do I think he wins it? No, I still give it to Connor Hellebuyck, but we've already talked about that. Again, what you're getting out of this guy. He's going to give you quality games. Again, we know what happened in Game 7 last year. We know that mantra that's kind of followed him around. So maybe this is an opportunity for him to really put that to rest. Maybe he's just going to say, hey, you know what? Screw that. I blew it last year, but I'm not blowing it again. Maybe he goes on a tear. This is a guy who could really light it up and just destroy some scorers' confidence really quick.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of goals saved above average, he led the league, 22.5.
Disgusting.
Goals above average. The only other guy close to him was Connor Hellebuyck at 22.4. The next closest, Khudobin at 17. So it was he. I mean, you think 5.5 goals more than the next, or about 5 goals more, allowed less than the next guy that he was responsible for. I mean, that's basically 5 wins. A lot of times, that's 4 or 5 extra wins that he brings in, and there's your difference. That's why the Bruins are first and the Tampa Bay Lightning are second in the division. Which ironically, it really doesn't matter at all now. Like, it just matters that you're in the top 4, and that now it's all gonna kind of get scrambled up. That is the one thing that I don't like about the reseeding, is that you made it into the top 4, but it literally meant nothing that you were above. Like, it doesn't mean anything that the Bruins were above the Lightning.
Right.
It means absolutely
President's
nothing.
Trophy, who cares?
Yeah. President's Trophy doesn't give you any advantage at this point. So in that sense, it's a little sad. But obviously goaltending, they're in capable hands. And if anything happens to Rask, Yaroslav Halak has songs written after him after 2009.
Yeah, thanks Montreal.
There was this, I think I've talked about it on the show before, probably years ago I talked about it. There was this song off of the Lady Gaga song, and it was Yaroslav Halak, you bring Stanley Cup.
I think you played that for me one time.
I think I did.
Ah.
Yeah, you can go look that up, and I'm sure if you go on YouTube and search Yaroslav Halak song, it'll be up there. But yeah, you're in decent hands. Definitely one of the better backups out of these four teams.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That defense, once again, going to a very strong a position of strength here for the Boston Bruins. And you talked about it with the Lightning and all these guys that are looking for contracts. Holy mackerel. Here is a chance for Torrey Krug to become one of the highest paid defensemen in the league, potentially. I mean, he might get more than John Carlson got, or right around what John Carlson received.
Yeah, I think the only thing that really might stand in his way for some teams is his size, right? He's 5'9", and new NHL, right? Size isn't supposed to matter as much, because this guy's a righty. He's got speed. He can move the puck. He quarterbacks a power play very, very well. So some teams are going to probably be willing to give him that money, but I think some teams might shy away from him. Regardless, when you are one of the top scorers in the NHL in terms of points, and even points per games for that matter, on the back end and D. And he's only 28 right now, so he's still
29 now.
Yeah, 29 now. So he's still got some good years
we unfortunately had some birthdays since we last played.
I mean, he's still got. If you're a team, you're more than willing to hand him a 4 or 5 year deal without question.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, you're going to have to give him 7. I don't think there's any doubt about it. He's getting 7 years, no doubt. I mean, he's the best defenseman in this free agency.
Oh, I don't agree with that. I think Pietrangelo is
I don't
probably
think
the
he'll
best.
make it to
You don't think so?
No.
Okay. Well, then if that's the case, then yes, he would be the best.
I'll say this: he will be he is guaranteed to potentially be the best.
I'll tell you what's funny.
Pietrangelo may or may not sign in St. Louis. Krug is not going to sign in Boston.
No, I absolutely agree with that.
You look at, I'm trying to figure out a way to make it happen. The only way to do it is if you trade Krejci. If you can, and now he would only have 1 year left on his deal. It's possible. I mean, he does have a no trade clause. He has to list at least 50% of the teams in the NHL who he would take a trade to.
Yeah, that makes it tough.
That would be the only way. Like, to me, when I look at the Bruins, if we're thinking long term, that's probably the move you have to make. You have to find a way to trade David Krejci, which at 7.2, if you can eat $2 million of that, you get that extra $5 million, and you could sign Torrey Krug.
Yeah, because I think Torrey Krug's going to be an easy $7-8 million guy.
Easy.
So, yeah, that would help. And even if you have to eat a little bit of Krejci's contract, right, that would help. But I mean, it's funny. I look at the Red Wings, right? Torrey Krug's from Michigan. That would be great for them.
And I mean, they could hand him over.
They got cap money.
They can. As Steve Yzerman, though, would he be willing to hand Torrey Krug $9 million? I
don't think he would. No,
probably not.
But regardless, I think
8 maybe though.
Yeah, Torrey Krug's definitely going to be one of the top UFAs to hit the market this year.
All the more reason for him to this
right.
is it with the Bruins. Like, you've been here your whole career. Here you go, one last chance to win it with this team. And it's going to be tough to beat this team.
And speaking of one last chance, Big Z, right? 43. Can he still go? I mean, obviously the rest is going to be more than helpful for him.
He's more healthy than most of the guys.
I know he is. I mean, 43, this rest is going to be great for him. So it'll be great to see a fresh Chara in the playoffs, even at 43 years old.
If he comes back fresh and ready to roll, I mean, the Bruins...
Makes him more dangerous.
If you can kick the clock back 5 years and you get a 38-year-old Chara, which is crazy to say that we would take a 38-year-old hockey player, but the Bruins might be the Cup favorites if he is that good.
Yeah,
if he's as good as he was in 2015 or 14 or something like that, because he's so rested.
And Boston's got a system in place for their defense, the way their team plays, where it just makes it easier for their defensemen to look good. And, I mean, not necessarily just look good because they're playing so well, but look good because they can be better players the way their system is set up for them, right? You don't have to consistently chase guys. You don't have to worry about, letting in guys behind you up front, right? Their forwards play responsible hockey. They don't give the puck up a lot. So this is all an advantage to the Boston D, which is already pretty dang good.
Yeah. Offensively speaking, from a forward standpoint, we know this team is going to come at you with a strong dose of Bergeron, Pasternak, and Marchand. Charlie Coyle was phenomenal in the playoffs last year. I don't think that they get past the first round against the Leafs if it's not for Charlie Coyle.
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
And of course you need him to be that guy again, because he's your second line center at this point. They brought in Kasha at the deadline from Anaheim, sorry. I mean, he really was your big pickup there. You need Kasha to be that guy. I mean, towards the stretch, he only played 6 games for Boston. He had 1 assist. Before that, 49 games, he had 23 points. I mean, he's been not the greatest. Since he had 20 goals in 2017-18, he's scored 18 goals since then. He hasn't been healthy, and maybe this is his chance. Like, maybe this is where Kasha gets healthy. He's able to squeeze himself up into the top 6, and Boston's got a legitimate some depth to that forward position. Along with, of course, you've got David Krejci, but we don't know. I always wonder about Krejci. Like, you just never know what kind of Krejci you're going to get at this point. I mean, 73 points last year, only 43 this year, 44 the year before. Like, are you going to get the Krejci who is a 20-goal scorer and a 50-assist guy, or are you going to get the guy who's, I guess over the course of 82 games, he probably would have had 55 points this year, but which guy are you going to get? Does this rest help him? Because like this team, maybe more than any other team in the Eastern Conference, in terms of like the age.
Yeah,
this rest could really help the Bruins.
I honestly, though, feel bad for Krejci because he's a guy who doesn't have consistent wingers, right? And he's still expected to produce because of the size of that contract. So, hey, maybe now, you got Kasha, Nick Ricci out there. Are these guys going to, they've got 1 year left on their deals, too, after this season. So maybe both these guys acquired at the deadline could provide a little spark for Krejci.
Yeah. Yep.
And it gives you the opportunity to put Coyle on a third line now, maybe more of a defensive role, open him up with a guy like Jake DeBrusk who can, still put the puck in the net a little bit. And
which I think your ideal spot is Krejci is your third line center. Coyle comes in and is your second line center.
I think ideally that would be better, but again, Coyle's got to show up again. If he, but that's also the nice thing too. If Coyle shows up as your second line guy and maybe isn't producing,
you've got a good top 9 essentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, Coyle, 37 points in these 70 games. But I mean, last year in the playoffs, in 24 games, he had 9 goals. Like, if you can get that kind of production out of him again, you are going to be in a good place. Whether or not he can produce that way, we'll have to see.
We'll see.
All right, let's go to the Washington Capitals, the top team in the Metropolitan Division with 90 points. And this Washington team, once again, from a goaltending, this is probably out of these 4 teams, the one team that we look at the goaltending situation and go, all right, who's going to start?
That's a very good question. Yeah, I'm worried. Don't get me wrong. I think Braden Holtby is probably the guy you're going to go to because he has the experience. He's got the ring. But again, you talk about the numbers, right? I mean, regular season wise, Samsonov had the better stats. He only played in about half the games. Obviously, 48 for Holtby, 26 for Samsonov. But Holtby's numbers: .897 save percentage, 3.11 goals against average. And when you look at goals average,
goals saved above average, he is the worst in the league outside of Jimmy Howard.
0.76 under, in the negative. So
yeah, he had a terrible season. I mean, he still managed 25, 14, and 6 record. He was okay, but I mean, Samsonov is 16 and 6, 2.3 or 2.3 goals saved above average, so much better. I think defensively speaking, the Capitals, they had some injuries. Radko Gudas coming in over, oh my gosh, who did they trade to the Flyers? Niskanen. I think that their defense took a little bit of a step back because of that move. I don't think that Washington has quite the mobility on their back end that they used to. And really, it is their weaker area, if we're going to find one for the Washington Capitals.
Yeah. I do think...
And it probably pays off to have that younger, more mobile goaltender over a Holtby who is... I mean, Holtby's played a lot of games.
Well, let's face it, Holtby is playing for a contract, right? Because I don't think he's going to re-sign in Washington. I think that was already, made clear when they went out and signed Nicholas Backstrom to an extension at to me, I think they overpaid a little bit at $9.2 million. But again, you've locked in your number 1 and number 2 center now if you're Washington, so that's kind of a little security blanket there with him and Kuzi. But Holtby isn't going to re-sign. I don't think there's any way Washington can find a way to get him and this team under the cap. And when you've got a guy like Samsonov who is going to be your guy of the future, so let Holtby walk, save the money, give him the reins.
In that case, are you not looking at this and going, sorry, but you're not our goalie anymore. Samsonov is going to be our goaltender.
What I'm going to do in these 3, however many games they play in this little play-in match.
Of course.
I'm rotating guys. I'm going to see who wants it more. Training camp, I'm going to see who's more prepared, who's going to battle for me a little bit more. And if maybe Holtby, is right there with Samsonov, I'm going to give Holtby the edge just because he has the playoff experience and has the cup.
Yeah, I guess, the last time the Capitals decided to give the reins to someone else, Holtby came in after 2 games and won them the cup. So maybe the strategy is to give Samsonov, and if he struggles, Holtby will come in and they'll win the cup.
Don't know if that will work out twice, but...
No, yeah, defensively speaking, outside of John Carlson, Orlov is a fine stay-at-home guy. He's a good partner for John Carlson. Radko Gudas, we know... there is always a chance that Radko Gudas is not going to play in the next game. Not because he's going to get hurt, but because he's going to do something stupid. Michael Kempny has, he's fine on that 4-5 kind of slot. Nick Jensen, another guy who's just fine. I think bringing in Brendan Dillon from the San Jose Sharks, that was a solid move.
I hope it works out because 10 games, no points. So I'm hoping that maybe this pause kind of helps him reset things a little bit, because when
he's not a big point guy anyways.
No,
14, only had one. He's had 1 goal each of the last 2 years.
Right, but he didn't look like his normal self. He didn't look like that guy. And I think maybe when you're playing on, a bad team in San Jose that's losing a lot of games, it kind of brings you down a little bit. And I think when you get moved, you still need to adjust. You're learning a new system because let's face it, San Jose and Washington don't play the same style of game. And so I think for me, this pause might actually do him some good. So he'll be great, I think, in that second spot in terms of that second pairing. I think he'll look really, really good. Now you can throw him with, I think, just about anybody, whether that's Nick Jensen or Orlov Kempny. I think one of those guys, you'll just throw them together. I think Brendan Dillon, he'll be fine. He'll be fine there.
Is there anybody who's going to benefit more from this little break than Alexander Ovechkin?
Nobody.
Guy's played a lot of games, heart and soul guy. He doesn't miss games, really. He rarely misses a game. In the last time he played fewer than 75 games in a regular season outside of a lockout year, 2009-10. And that's the fewest games he's ever played. 72 games. That's a lot of games over the course of your career. And the guy scored, obviously has over 700 goals. He's had 65 goals in the playoffs. This is an opportunity for Ovechkin. This team, you look at their makeup, you go, Ovechkin's 34, Backstrom's 32. Now, Backstrom just got a fatty contract, but you're kind of paying him for what he did, not necessarily for him. I don't think he's going to put up 92 points or anything. TJ Oshie's 33, and Oshie's a guy who definitely relies on his ability to grind and kind of get in your face and sneak around. This core team is getting older. What an opportunity for the Capitals. They get to rest. They get to watch these other teams beat up each other. They're going to get the second worst team. Well, no, you have a chance to get the worst team coming out, depending on what happens here,
right,
in the first round. And the sleeper. You've got Ilya Kovalchuk.
That to me is the biggest wild card right there.
And that is whoa, man, what a little interesting, almost oh yeah, they got Ilya Kovalchuk. I forgot about that.
Right. I saw some video of him doing a little bit of boxing right now in this break. He looks like a beast right now. He looks like he's ready to fly. And he came out excited when he got traded to Washington. You can put him on a second or third line, and I think he's going to produce a lot for you.
And
he's going to produce
well. If you get him on the power play and you put him in that power play already has Ovechkin that everyone is looking to. And now if you can use Ilya Kovalchuk, who has some pretty magic hands in front of the net, and a great shot in tight. This team to me is, even though they finished top in their division, I think we kind of like, oh yeah, the Capitals. They won their cup. Like, they already won their cup. And in a way, we write them off. Like, are they the favorites to win the cup? No. But maybe they should be.
Yeah, and don't rest on a guy like Jacob Vrana, too, who's exploded 25 goals. I mean, talk about some depth at scoring. They're going to have a lot of pieces up front, much like the Tampa Bay Lightning. Again, question marks on defense.
The defense is...
The goaltending, maybe a little bit, less reliable if you're Washington, but still.
You are absolutely right about the contract. It's either the contract or playing for your net. Both things that should motivate those goaltenders. All right, let's go to the final team that we have in the top 4 in the Eastern Conference, and that is the Philadelphia Flyers, sneaking into the top 2 of the division for the first time in a while here. And this team, I don't think we expected them to do this well this soon, but they do really have a nice mix of veterans, young players coming through, players that have like Ivan Provorov and Thomas Konechny, these guys that have seasoned themselves. They've been given the opportunity to kind of drudge through some of the rough seasons with the Philadelphia Flyers, along with, of course, your longtime Claude Giroux, Jacob Voracek, Sean Couturier, like these guys who have been here for a little bit of time. This team really has a beautiful mix of veterans and younger players, guys who have been there before, guys who haven't. I actually don't know what to think of this team being this high up. Like, this is probably the one team that I feel like I know least about. Like, I have the most question marks because I guess maybe I just didn't expect them to be in this position.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a change in the offseason, right? You bring in a new GM, a new head coach, Alain Vigneault. I think the system he's put in place has been great. Doesn't also hurt that now you finally have what hopes to be some stability in goal, right? A goaltender back there, even though he's young, Mr. Carter Hart back there in net, he could be a wild card for Philly because, again, I'm with you too. I really don't know what to make of this team or what kind of team I'm going to get because they started the season a little slow, and maybe that's because of all the changes, and then they turned it on, and they were hot end of the year. And so, again, you got to kind of throw out those streaks out the window with this pause, but they could still come in and play hot because now they've adapted to this new system. Maybe that was, what was really holding them back,
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, they're also going to get... They had some players that were hurt towards the end of the regular season. Van Riemsdyk was hurt a little bit. Long-term injury. You had Nolan Patrick, Oscar Lindblom, Samuel Morin. I think we've all been waiting for Nolan Patrick to break out and have some kind of semblance of like, okay, this is why the Flyers took him at number 2. His best season this year, 31 points in 72 games, 13 goals, his career high. Like, he's kind of been an average third line, kind of sneaks into the top 6, and I really want to see Nolan Patrick break out in these playoffs. I would love to see that.
Is he going to be healthy though to play?
I don't know.
That's the big question. I'm not really sure about his injury status right now.
I guess my assumption is always that, well, if you were hurt before, you should probably be able to play now. But
I mean, they would love it. That would add some depth. They could, that third line center position would be great for a guy like that to come in. Then they don't have to play a guy like Derek Grant, who he's been fine, but ideally Nolan Patrick would be the guy you want there.
Yeah, I guess. They still haven't really come out and. I can't find anything about what's going on with him. So
okay, I mean,
if you know, hit us on Twitter.
Right. So the assumption for me is he's not going to be in there. But regardless, I think you still have an amazing top line. Whether or not you're rolling, Couturier with Giroux, but the other, whether or not you have Konechny or Voracek up there on that right side, doesn't matter. I think that top line's still going to be dangerous. Kevin Hayes looked pretty good.
$7 million man, Kevin Hayes.
Yeah, maybe wouldn't have given him that much money.
$7.14285 million man.
But getting JVR back healthy, that's going to be a big boost come playoff time.
Yep.
He plays hard. He has good hands. He'll be fun to watch.
Toss him in front of the net, and he will do some magical things on the power play.
And you've witnessed it for quite a while.
That's right. And defensively, this team really has a lot of really nice young defensemen. And then you throw in a veteran like Matt Niskanen, who's won he won 2 Stanley Cups?
With Pittsburgh.
He won a Stanley Cup with Pittsburgh too, right? Mm-hmm. So, Niskanen is a guy who has tons of playoff experience. Gostisbehere has been there before. Some of these guys have been there, but they haven't exactly had the runs that a guy like Niskanen that you can.
Gostisbehere's got to be. He's got to be a guy to me that's got to step up if Philly wants to have any long-term success in the playoffs, because we know what we're going to get. Ivan Provorov, he's going to be a quality defenseman, but he doesn't have that offensive upside that I think a guy like Gostisbehere does. Same with Niskanen, right? He can still provide some decent minutes for you, but he's not going to put up those 40, 50 points on the back end like Shane Gostisbehere can, and that's why they paid him. So
65 points in 2017-18, and since then he's had 49 points in 120 games.
Yeah.
So
which one are you getting? And if you get the guy that can be what you thought he would be when you signed him to an extension and drafted him for, then this team could be really dangerous.
I'll never forget in the playoffs when the Capitals and the Flyers are playing each other. I think the Capitals won in like 5 or 6 games, but Gostisbehere, when the puck was getting cleared out of the zone on a power play, he dove and knocked the puck down with his hand and then landed on the ice and stood back up and made a play.
I remember that, yeah.
I remember being like, who is this guy? Like the most athletic defenseman. And yeah, he had a great season and just kind of fell off the map a little bit. And you never know. You never know what a guy kind of maybe is going through mentally, physically, and it's always possible that this whole ordeal becomes something good for some of these guys. They get a chance to rest. They get a chance to figure out what they want to do with the rest of their career. And he's certainly one of those guys. You're right, that if he can get back to that point, the Flyers defense goes from being a really nice defense to holy crap, you have a whole nother player that you have to watch out for all the time.
Yeah, you've got a solid top 4 then at that point.
And Ivan Provorov is phenomenal. So
yeah, he's good.
Anyone that you're looking at the forward position, of course we know Giroux, we know Voracek. Like, is there anybody in there that you're going, I'd keep an eye on this guy?
Oh, yeah, I think to me it's got to be JVR to me, because I think we know what we're getting out of their top line. I think when you start playing some of these more top tier teams like Washington and Tampa Bay that have firepower in their top 9, you need that depth scoring. And sure. I think that's kind of part of the reason they brought him in here. 1, because he brings the physicality to the game, but 2, he has the hands and he can score. So
yeah, he can definitely score some goals.
Yeah. So to me, I think obviously 66 games, 40 points, not a bad season. He'll be healthy, ready to go, and especially for a bigger guy like that who likes to throw the body around, that's great. To me, he's the guy that's got to do it for this team, because if you got to go line for line, when you look down like I said, those top teams like Washington and Tampa, they're going to have the depth to do it. Philly's going to need it.
If we're talking most underrated players in the NHL, and Barkov was always the name thrown around, but you can't win that 4 years in a row and still be the most underrated player.
Right.
I actually think Sean Couturier is probably the most underrated player in the NHL.
I absolutely agree.
He's phenomenal. I mean, he would have put up he would have put up 70 points likely or around 70 points had the season played out. He had ended up with 59 points in 69 games. He had 76 points both the last 2 years. Maybe a little bit of a down year, but from the previous 2 in terms of production. But obviously the team success, much more important anyways. This team is deeper. They didn't need to rely on him the same way. So you're okay with taking a little hit to your stats if your team's winning. But Sean Couturier to me is he is the straw that stirs this drink.
Right. Last time in the playoffs, 5 games for Philly in 17-18, 9 points.
Yeah, I remember. Yes.
Talk about a straw.
Yeah. And I think that was against the Capitals in that series. So the cool storyline could be the Flyers. They might end up playing the Maple Leafs. who, that
would
nice
be fun.
JVR little connection there. And just going to be so fun. When are we starting? When do we get going? All right, I want to hear your predictions for the East. It doesn't. Obviously, doesn't have to be one of these 4 teams. It can be any team you want. And then I want to hear your West, and then who wins the Cup.
Ooh, okay. Oh, man, this one was tough. East was a lot harder for me to decide on than the West was, I'll be honest, because there's so many teams and so many wild cards on each team that really just...
Get it?
I see what you did there. Ultimately, though, I honestly had to go with Tampa Bay for the East. I think just because of the pressure on them to win, they have to do it, I think, or else you're blowing up this team, in my opinion. They've got the goaltending, they've got the forwards, and I think, the question marks maybe on defense, I think they're not worrying me enough. I'm not worried enough about it to really say, okay, that's going to hold them back, because they've got enough to make up the difference if the defense sort of falters outside of McDonough and Hedman.
Okay. I'm going to tell you exactly how it's going to go down.
Please.
The Toronto Maple Leafs will somehow end up playing the Boston Bruins again.
Probably.
And this time they will finally slay the beast. The Maple Leafs will beat the Boston Bruins. If it plays out, this is how I'm playing it out, is that the Bruins, where they end up falling, because the Leafs they're 8th, and I think the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to go through, and 6 is Carolina, right? I think that's how it goes. Yeah, 6 is Carolina. I think they're going to go through. I think there's a chance that based on those standings, if the Bruins finish high enough, that the Leafs could be one of the lower seeds that actually make it through. Probably the 3rd highest seed that make it through. And I'm thinking the Bruins finish 3. And so the Leafs play the Bruins in the first round. They're going to move through them. And they're going to have to, at some point, they're going to play the Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't know how. Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Maple Leafs are going to play for the Eastern Conference. And the Leafs are going to beat the Pittsburgh Penguins and move to their first Stanley Cup finals since 1967. Now, and the reason that'll happen is because this year people will go, oh, well, see, yeah, it's their first final since 67, but it's not really that legit. So it'll be like this small rub.
Really
still
legit.
Doesn't really count that much. In the Western Conference, I think that speed is going to be so important. And the 2 teams with the most speed, in my mind, are the Edmonton Oilers and the Colorado Avalanche. I think this is the Edmonton Oilers coming out party. And I think the 2 teams that are hub cities are going to be in the Stanley Cup Finals.
That's
Edmonton
bold.
Oilers, Toronto Maple Leafs. And then they're going to have to go, where are we going to play the finals? Which one gets it?
Yeah, they have talked about at that point, depending on where things are, they might actually let the teams play at their hometowns.
And then I think that those ones they would, travel back and forth. Yeah. Maybe, yeah.
Wow, that would be crazy. To me in the West, though, I agree with you. I think speed is going to kill, but I think, boy, you know what? My heart wants to say St. Louis again, just because I loved everything I saw last year out of this team. I love the story, the resilience. I love a lot of the guys on that team and the grit they kind of bring. But to me, I think ultimately speed kills, and I think they've got enough firepower up front to just duke it out with some of these teams if they've got to go toe for toe in terms of goals. To me, Colorado's going to win the West. I think they're just too powerful. Okay, they've got now a Kadri to center that second line, who I think... Boy,
wouldn't that be a Leafs, Colorado?
Oh, that would be
you got
fun.
Kadri going at it with the Leafs. And then he gets suspended. Oh, he might not even play. He might get suspended.
Right. Yeah, and then I'm sure then that means your prediction for the Cup is probably going to be Toronto.
Yeah, I'm saying Toronto will win their first Stanley Cup since 1967 and be told that it's not legitimate. That's exactly what's going to happen. Right. That is like a Toronto thing.
Yeah,
that's what'll happen.
Okay,
like the Raptors win it, and they're like, "Well, you only won it because Kawhi came and
Kawhi Leonard came in,
and then he left."
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna
Leafs
pick...
and the Avs were 1-1 against each other, by the way.
Okay,
so
that would be interesting. I'm gonna pick Tampa Bay to win.
Okay,
I think it's their year finally. They had
Tampa, Colorado would be a good.
They're gonna learn from their mistakes last year, so at least come playoffs.
I like it. All right, so you're picking the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm picking the Toronto Maple Leafs in the Stanley Cup Finals because why not?
Why not?
This is the year to just I'm gonna stick with my homer team.
If I got to take a wild card, though, I just want to throw this out there. I think there's maybe a wild card team, in terms of both conferences that I think could really do some damage if a couple guys show up. But I think Carolina is going to be fun to watch for me.
Okay. Yeah. If I have to pick a team who is like far down the standings, a team that doesn't have home ice advantage, quote unquote home ice advantage,
right?
Somebody who's ranked 9 through 12, a team that I think could surprise. I guess I'd have to go Vancouver Canucks.
Okay,
I think that
I could see it.
They could surprise some people. That and Columbus is better than they look. So my whole prediction could be completely out the.
Hey, Torch is known to squeeze the most out of his guys, and now he's got an extra 3 months to do it.
The Leafs are either going to win the cup or the first overall pick, whichever one. People are going to say it's not legit. No matter which way it is.
If Toronto wins the first overall pick.
That is what'll happen. All right, well, this has been Overtime Hockey Talk. Let us know what you thought. Subscribe, share with your friends. That's all we want. Just share it with your friends. Let them know that you love our show. Give us a 5-star rating, and you can always follow us on Twitter. And that's at OT Hockey Talk. Justin, any final thoughts?
Toronto better not win anything.
Nothing.
I don't want you rubbing that in my face for the next couple months.
You won so many Stanley Cups, it's not even fair. Okay, we'll talk to you.